Good morning, children. Today in English in class 11, we will begin Mother's Day, which is a play by J.B. Priestley. Now, J.B. Priestley was an English novelist, playwright, social commentator, and broadcaster. This humorous play portrays the status of a mother in the family. The author brings out the plight of the mother very realistically in the play. Mrs. Annie Pearson is not treated well by her husband George Pearson and her two children Doris and Sarah. With the help of her neighbor Mrs. Fitzgerald and a magic spell, their souls are exchanged and she stands up for her rights. Mrs. Annie Pearson's family is shocked at the change, but they learn to behave properly with her so that she gets the respect that she deserved all along. Now we have the main characters, Mrs. Annie Pearson. Now, Mrs. Annie Pearson is a pleasant but a nervous kind of a person who loves her family deeply and cares so much for them, and she has spoiled her children and husband. Then we have George Pearson, Annie Pearson's husband. Then we have Doris Pearson, their daughter, Sarah Pearson, their son, and Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is a friend and a neighbor. And she is a very strong-willed person. She knows magic and helps Mrs. Annie Pearson to reform the spoilt members of the Pearson family. So, this is what the play is about. Now, we see that the two ladies, that is, Mrs. Annie Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald, are sitting enjoying a cup of tea, and cards are on the table, with the help of which Mrs. Fitzgerald has been telling Mrs. Pearson's fortune. Mrs. Pearson is a fortune teller. She is a friend of Annie Pearson and she is a neighbor as well. Now we see that Mrs. Pearson is a pleasant but worried looking woman in her 40s, whereas Mrs. Fitzgerald is a very bold, outspoken and strong person. She is smoking. It is very important that these two should have sharply contrasting voices, and Mrs. Pearson speaks in a light, flurried sort of tone with a touch of suburban cockney perhaps, and Mrs. Fitzgerald with a deep voice. Now the conversation between the two that goes on. Mrs. Fitzgerald, she collects the cards, and that's all I can tell you, Mrs. Pearson. So Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson are having a conversation, and she says that this is what I can predict about you because she's a fortune teller. So she has told Annie Pearson about her life. Could be a good fortune, could be a bad one. So she says that she is telling Annie Pearson, her friend, that she is telling her that your fortune, your luck can be good or it can be bad. All depends on yourself now. That means everything is depending on her. If she wants to make her life better or she wants to continue in the same manner. Make up your mind, and there it is. That means she is telling her friend, she's a well-wisher, and she tells her that if she wants to change her life, there has to be a point of decision and to change her life. That's how it will be possible. Mrs. Pearson, yes, thank you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she is expressing her gratitude that she has spared her time, come here, and she has predicted about her future. I'm much obliged. She says, I'm very grateful to you. I'm sure. It's wonderful having a real fortune teller living next door. So she is very grateful that she has spared her time and that she is a friend, a well-wisher and a fortune teller, and has come here today and spent some time with her. Did you learn that out east too? And that is magic. She is a fortune teller and she has also learned certain amount of magic. So she says that, did you learn that in the east, where she was there with her husband? Mrs. Fitzgerald, I did. See, she is acknowledging 12 years I had of it. That meant that they were there in the East for about 12 years, and that is where she learnt magic also. With my old man rising to the lieutenant quartermaster, that is a rank. A quartermaster is looking after the provision of rations and everything else. He learnt a lot and I learnt a lot more. So she says that both husband and wife, that is Mrs. Fitzgerald and her husband who was in the army and he was posted in the East, that is where they had spent 12 years. So that is where she knew fortune telling, and she also learned certain amount of magic. But will you make up your mind now, Mrs. Pearson dear? So she is emphasizing upon the fact that she wants Mrs. Annie Pearson to make up her mind and decide what she wants in her life, because she is not treated well by her husband or by the children. Put your foot down once and for all and be the mistress of your own house and the boss of your own family. It's a known fact that woman is the backbone of the house. She is the one who is helping and supporting with all her love and care and affection showered on the family members. So she is telling her friend, she is very worried about her friend, and she is telling her, put your foot down. That means you make up your mind, you resolve, you become determined that you are the mistress of your house and you should be the one to decide, and all your family, that is the husband and the children, should listen to her. But till now, she has not been treated well by the family. Mrs. Pearson, smiling apologetically. That's easier said than done. That meant, she meant to say was that it was very easy and simple for Mrs. Fitzgerald to remark and comment about her life and her family. It's easy to speak, but difficult to put into practice. Besides, I'm so fond of them even if they are thoughtless and selfish. She says, I'm so fond of them. That means she is the one who loves her husband and the children deeply, and is the one responsible, one can say, to have spoiled them. She is aware of the fact that they are thoughtless, they are inconsiderate, they are selfish and self-centered, but all the same, they are her family, and therefore she loves and cares for them. They don't mean to be. So she is trying to assure her friend that they don't intend to be selfish or self-centered, but they are her family after all. Maybe not, Mrs. Pearson interjects, but it would be better for them if they learnt to treat you properly. She does not feel very nice to see her being ill-treated by the family, that is Annie Pearson. So Mrs. Fitzgerald wishes that they realize their mistake and treat her the way she should be, respected and loved and cared. Mrs. Pearson, yes, I suppose it would in a way. So she is also aware she wants her family to change their attitude, their perspective towards her, that they should treat her with respect and love and care. But that's the way things are, Mrs. Fitzgerald. No doubt about it at all. She says, I definitely understand that yes, you want your family to treat you well. Who is the better for being spoilt, grown man, lad or girl? That means that the husband is not treating her well, the son and the daughter, both of them are also not treating her well. And this is not helping them and it is not helping her, because she is unhappy, and that's not the way a family should behave. Nobody. You think it does them good when you run after them all the time? Take their orders as if you were the servant in the house. Stay at home every night while they go out enjoying themselves. She meant a family should always be together. So what she meant to say was that it is not helping her and it is not helping the family also. That is, that she is treated like a servant. She is running after each one of them, taking their orders and doing whatever each one of them asks her. And in the evening and every night, they go out. The husband goes to the club, the children go for their own outings, and she is left alone every single evening. Never in all your life it's the ruin of them as well as you. That is, that it is not helping the family, it is not helping the husband nor the children. She says that it is not helping anyone at all, that rather they are being ruined. Husbands, sons, daughters should be taking notice of wives and mothers, not giving them orders and treating them like dirt. So she is very sure of the fact that a woman who's the lady of the house should be respected and not be treated like dirt, not be treated like a doormat. So the husband should respect the wife, and the children should also respect their mother. And don't tell me you don't know what I mean, for I know more than you have told me. So she says that Annie Pearson has shared very little with her friend Mrs. Fitzgerald, but Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is a smart lady, clever, has been able to judge what Annie Pearson is undergoing and definitely wants to help her in every possible manner. Thank you.